Government is being urged to hold a public inquiry into historical child sex abuse at a Catholic-run children's home in East Yorkshire. Earlier this year, James Carragher, a former principal at the St William's School near Market Wheaton, and Anthony McCallan, a former chaplain, were jailed for abusing boys in their care in the 1970s and 80s. Today, one Yorkshire MP, Hilary Benn, said that the case should be looked at as part of a national inquiry into child abuse. We'll hear from him in a moment, but first our correspondent Vicky Johnson has this report.
For years, the abuse at St William's care home was kept secret, shrouded in silence. Now these men are pressing for a public inquiry for what went on at the Catholic-run school near Market Wheaton in the 70s and 80s.
Either beaten, drugged and raped. It was covered up by police, social services, the Catholic Church Diocese of Middlesbrough. We want a public inquiry. Earlier
this year, James Carragher, former principal of St William's, and the chaplain, Anthony McCallan, were both jailed for sexually abusing boys in their care. The third successful criminal prosecution relating to St William's. Most of the people signing the petition in Beverley and at other towns across the north of England have been impressed by the men's bravery in speaking out.
I think it's good that they are willing to make a stand and to ask for people's support.
It almost sort of smacks you of Hillsborough, that things were covered up, and Jimmy Savile, that things were covered up. And clearly, if there are issues, they want resolving.
There's a lot of people know it goes on, but nobody says anything. My heart's off to these guys, you know.
A national public inquiry into historical child abuse was prompted after Jimmy Savile's death in 2011, when scores of his victims came forward. Since then, investigations have been launched into abuse at Westminster, the Catholic Church, the Church of England, and into grooming and sexual exploitation in places like Rotherham. Judge Lowell Goddard was made head of the national inquiry last year, but with so many complicated investigations, the report isn't expected until 2018 at the earliest.
But us victims are doing a life sentence for what's happened to us.
While they wait to hear whether their case will form part of the national inquiry, they're still pressing ahead with their legal action for compensation. Vicky Johnson, BBC Look North.
Well, the Leeds MP, Hilary Benn, represents one of the victims and met him last week. Earlier today, I asked him for his reaction when he found out how long the abuse had been going on for.
Well, it is just shocking what happened at this care home, and sadly other places up and down the country, which is why the Goddard inquiry was established, to find out what went on, but more importantly, why it went on for so long. And it's left the victims, including my constituent, absolutely traumatised by what happened.
How was this meeting? Because you did meet the victim last week. How did that go?
Yes, he came to see me. Now, there have been convictions in this particular case. The chaplain, I think, and the ex-principal have been found guilty of offences. There is a civil case seeking compensation on behalf of a very large number of boys who were abused. But what he really wanted was the Goddard inquiry, which is this national inquiry that has been set up to look at the problem of child abuse, to look specifically at what happened at the St William's care home. And I have written to Judge Lowell Goddard, who is heading the inquiry, to ask for her and her team to look at what happened here, and in particular to ask the question, because we know that those responsible had been convicted, but why was it that no one paid any attention when, as my constituent put it to me, complaints were made to the police about what had been going on, but the boys in this case were not believed. Now, why did that happen, and how, most important of all, can we make sure that it doesn't happen again?
So in a way, even though the two men responsible have been jailed, we need from this inquiry to learn so this type of thing can't happen again, and complaints can't go ignored for so long.
That is absolutely right. That is one of the things I think the victims want to see come out of this. Also, they'd like their full story to be heard. And the inquiry is going to provide an opportunity for testimony for those who've experienced abuse. And thirdly, I mean, many of those who've been affected have had no counselling or support, and what happened to them at a very young and vulnerable age has had a huge impact on the rest of their lives. And it's important that they get practical support, as well as society recognising exactly what did happen to them, so that we hopefully can prevent it ever happening again to others.
Indeed. Mr. Benn, good to have you on the programme tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hilary Benn talking to me earlier this afternoon. Some more news now.